Hello, everyone. My name is Ray, and I'm a librarian at the Volusia County Public Library, and we have another guest with us for our Science is Their Superpower. Stephanie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dr. Stephanie DeMay and I'm a biologist and I work mostly on threatened and endangered species.
So you work with threatened and endangered species. Where do you work, I guess is a good question to start with.
Yeah, I work for Texas A&M's Natural Resources Institute and we work really closely with the Fish and Wildlife Service to conduct SSAs, which are species status assessments. And I work mostly on species in the Southeast. I work remotely. I'm up in Alaska right now, but a lot of my work is down in Florida by you and other southeastern places. Right now I'm working on an SSA for the manatee and Florida sand skink. So right in your area, I've also worked on red-cockaded woodpecker, some salamanders, some mussels, some plants, a little bit of everything. And I'll tell you a little bit about what a species status assessment is. And it is an assessment of what a species, well, first, what a species needs to persist out on the landscape. What do they eat? What kind of habitat do they need? What are the threats to the species? Just what do we know about a species to start with? And then the next step, once we compile and synthesize what we know, we then assess what is the current condition of that species. So how many animals or plants are there out on the landscape? How many different populations are there? Are they all just in one population or are there 10 different populations out there? How much habitat is there? Is it good habitat or is it bad habitat? So we assess their current condition and then we have to get creative and we make some predictions about the future condition of the species, which is challenging. We can't read the future. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do know some things. We know, development, urban development is probably going to increase. We know sea levels are rising, so we can develop different scenarios that could happen for a species. We can explore different strategies that we might use to help recover the species and say, if we do this strategy, this is what the future condition might be. And if we try this other strategy, this is what the future condition might be. So as much as we can, we try to look in that crystal ball and say, what are some plausible futures that there might be for this species? So we have, first, what does the species need? Number two, what is the current condition of those needs? And then three, what are some plausible futures for the species? And then we put this all in one science document. So we're working closely with the Fish and Wildlife Service, who makes wildlife policy for threatened and endangered species, but the species status assessment itself is not a policy document. It's just science, everything that we know and can predict with the science. And then the service, Fish and Wildlife Service, then uses that to inform all of their policy decisions. So it's the best available science so that they can make the best policy decisions that they can, like, should this species be listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act, or is this species recovered and we can take it off of the endangered species list, or what kind of things should we put in the recovery plan to recover it? So we're compiling all the best science to lead to the very best policy decisions that we can for these species.
Interesting. So what excites you most about your work?
And what excites me the most is that when I go into any given, I get a species assigned to me, I usually know absolutely nothing about it. So I am a trained biologist. I went to school for 8.5 years to learn about biology and ecology and genetics and all of these things. And so I know things, generally, but when someone puts an Altamaha spiny mussel on my lap, I know absolutely nothing about that. So it's really exciting for me that I just, I'm assigned the species and we bring a team of species experts around us to do these assessments. And it's my job to act as a funnel for all of their knowledge. They just pour all their knowledge into me and I read all of the scientific studies and reports. And it's my job to learn cool things about these species that I've never even heard of and turn it into a document that is going to lead to the best possible policy outcomes for a species. So I get to go in knowing nothing, and it's my job to learn and use that knowledge. That's really exciting.
What's one thing that we should know about your area of expertise that we probably don't?
Yeah, so I'm going to involve you in this one a little bit, give you a little quiz about the United States' threatened and endangered species. So I looked on the Fish and Wildlife Service website yesterday, and there were 1,657 species included on the threatened and endangered species list. So over 1,600, 1,657. So your question, how many of those do you think are mammals?
Mammals. I'm going to say less than 100.
Ooh, you're good. You're good. 78. 78 of them are mammals. All right, let's try another one. So amphibians, these are your frogs and salamanders. They have permeable skins. They're often in wet areas. If there's any pollution in the water, that can get through their skin and mess them up pretty good. So how many amphibians do you think out of 1,600?
Out of 1,600, we know 78 are mammals now. I would say around 500.
37.
37.
37. All right. So 78 mammals,
Okay.
37 amphibians. How many do you think are mussels, clams, snails, those kinds of slimy things?
250.
You're a little high. There's 122 clams on the list. So 78 mammals, 122 clams, 37 amphibians, 122 clams. There's, look at my list, 93 insects. So there's more insects on the endangered species list than mammals. There's 106 birds. So, if there's 1,600 species, what are all the rest of them? There's a lot of plants on the endangered species list. 942, over half are plants. So I think it's important for everyone to know, when people think of endangered species, first you probably think outside of the United States, thinking about pandas and tigers. Then when we go inside the United States, people probably think, bald eagle, no longer listed as endangered, but there's a good success story that they were endangered and now they're recovered. We think about manatees, we think about sea turtles, these mammals and birds and reptiles, but we can't forget about the Altamaha spiny mussel, our clams, our insects, our plants, our crustaceans, crayfish. There's a lot of them out there that are also worthy of our consideration and protection, and it helps me to consider them and find value in them by remembering that the Altamaha spiny mussel and monarch butterfly, all these things are my very, very, very distant cousins. And if we go back on my family tree, millions and millions and millions of years, and some plant in Kentucky worked on the Kentucky glade cress, you take that ancestry back millions and millions of years, we have a common ancestor. And that is just crazy to think about, but that plant, that mussel is my cousin, they're your cousin. And family is everything, and you've got to do everything to help protect your family. And our family is all life on Earth, and that's really cool. And I think people should think about that more.
Plants being on there, that makes sense though.
Yeah.
What's one book recently or over the course of your life that's influenced you the most?
So my favorite book that I go back and reread every few years is The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster, who just passed away recently. And it's about a boy who's just kind of bored and doesn't find much excitement in life. And then he goes on this magical adventure in this crazy land and learns about the value of learning and the difference between knowledge and wisdom and the importance of words and numbers and math and music and color. And it's just really inspiring. It teaches me that there's no reason to ever be bored because there's so much to discover and learn. And math is cool because it's important and it's the language of science, and we can't do anything without numbers, and we can't do anything without words, and just a really good outlook to view the world through. And I just wanted to share my favorite quote from the book that kind of captures a lot of the lessons in it. So this is the Princess of Pure Reason is talking to our protagonist Milo, the bored little boy, at the end of his journey. And she says, "You may not see it now, but whatever we learn has a purpose, and whatever we do affects everything and everyone else, if even in the tiniest way. Why, when a housefly flaps his wings, a breeze goes round the world. When a speck of dust falls to the ground, the entire planet weighs a little more. And when you stamp your foot, the earth moves slightly off its course. Whenever you laugh, gladness spreads like the ripples in a pond. And whenever you're sad, no one anywhere can be really happy. And it's much the same thing with knowledge, for whenever you learn something new, the whole world becomes that much richer." And that's the way I try to live my life.
Well, it sounds like a good ethos to have. Stephanie, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share with us here in Volusia County.